Have you ever had that feeling of missing a must-stop place when traveling? It happens a lot and I know it's frustrating, especially for this road trip from Nelson to Punakaiki on the west coast of the South Island, with so many amazing sights. After watching this video, you'll know the best places to stop, plus you'll get more insider travel tips from a local living in the area. This one. My name is Michael, let's get started. So first off, let's have a look at this Google Maps going from Nelson here in the top right corner to Punakaiki here down here. The driving distance is around about 260 kilometers and Google states that's 3.5 hours. As usually with Google, you need to add about 10 to 15% on driving time. Before we go into the details, I want to point out a couple of road options we will discuss throughout this video. One is the direct road, which is here in blue, and the other one is actually going through Reefton, which is down here. So this will be quite interesting because we'll give you a couple of options later on how to explore the west coast of the South Island. But before we go any further, I briefly want to explain the Nelson Tasman region so you get a better idea, because often people will search Nelson and they're not aware really about the location itself. Where is the 𝗟𝗶𝘆𝗃𝗀𝗯𝗼𝗇𝗏 National Park located, etc. So let's have a quick look at Nelson. So Nelson is here located on the top end of the South Island. It's a city around about 50,000 people, so it's quite a decent size for New Zealand. And outside Nelson, this area between Nelson and the 𝗟𝗶𝘆𝗃𝗀𝗯𝗼 Tasman, even going much further here, the 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗏 area, this is called the Tasman region. And this is basically where the 𝗟𝗶𝘆𝗃𝗀𝗯𝗼 Tasman National Park is. So my point is this: if you want to explore the 𝗟𝗏𝘃𝗀𝗏𝗏 Tasman National Park, which many people want to do, you can either stay in Nelson, which is about an hour's drive from Nelson here to 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗏𝗏 or 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, or you can actually stay right in between here in that Tasman region, Ruby Bay, 𝗬𝗏𝗎𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗎𝗏. This is actually my preferred option. When I do my day work as a travel designer, this is what I often suggest to people, because from here you have access to the whole region with its many activities and sites. I will actually do another video on the Nelson Tasman region after this, so watch out for that. So after this brief introduction, I think it gives you a better perspective in respect of the travel route between Nelson, Tasman and the west coast. So great, so let's start focusing on the direct route from Nelson going on SH6, which is the main highway heading southeast towards Brightwater. And Brightwater is the first place I want to point out. It's only about 20 minutes outside Nelson, but there's a kind of an interesting memorial I've always seem to stop by when I'm in the area. It's called the Lord Rutherford Memorial. It's all to do with Lord Ernest Rutherford. He was born here in a little cottage in the 1850s, I believe. It's a really interesting place, and his achievement in science. So this might be interesting for some people to have a quick stop. So from Brightwater, you continue traveling south through Wakefield. The area is very famous for orchards, fruit orchards, but also especially here between Brightwater and Wakefield, you have the first hop field, so hop for brewing beer. The Tasman region is the key hop growing area in New Zealand, and lots of them is actually exported, but that's just as a side note. Make your way further south, and Belgrove is a tiny little place which used to be a very important part because it's a stop place for the railway, which is no longer existence. But from Belgrove onwards, there's no mobile phone reception, so you need to be aware of that. So if you're staying in the Mapua, Upper Murchison region here, Redwood Valley, then you can actually do a shortcut. You don't have to go back to Nelson, but here's a kind of a road which is connecting you to Brightwater Village, and then you obviously can go on State Highway 6. So just after Belgrove, you see this little road here. This is actually Detour. This could be interesting because this road leads you right down to the 𝗬𝗏𝗃 area, which is the Nelson Lakes National Park. So the Nelson Lakes National Park is one of these totally underrated locations in New Zealand. Many people pass by. It's a very small village, but you could include it as part of a day trip from Nelson, or you could actually do it along the way going to the west coast. There's quite a few walking options. There's also a water taxi option to the end of the lake, and you then can hike back. So if you select to go through 𝗬𝗏𝗃 and have a look around there, then you can easily reconnect here on SH63 back to SH6, which is the main road here in blue. So if you're staying further towards the 𝗟𝗶𝘆𝗀𝗾𝗃 Tasman National Park, you can actually take a different route from, let's say you stay around about the Motueka area, then you can actually go through 𝗬𝗶𝘃𝗀𝗾𝗃. This area is really the main hop growing area here in New Zealand. There's a number of places I can recommend as well to stop. Here is one of them, the hidden sculpture park. During the summertime, there's a lot of cyclists passing by, and it's open to the public. There's a small admission fee, but it's really well worth if you come along from Motueka and heading towards the west coast. Have a quick stop. It only takes about 10-15 minutes to have a look around. So after 𝗬𝗏𝘃𝗀𝗾, you're basically reconnecting at Kohatu with SH6, which is the main road heading to the west coast. The road is pretty much straightforward before it gets a little bit windy. And here's a place you want to consider to stop. It's a Hope Saddle Lookout. It provides you a stunning overview over the region, the Tasman region here, looking towards the Southern Alps. There's a bit of local wildlife. Here's a weka bird. There are also toilet facilities. Quite a popular place, so it's a decent sized car park. So, and then you just continue along the main road, and here's a little place if you want to stretch your legs. There's a Kawatiri Historic Railway Walk. As I mentioned before, there used to be a railway from Nelson going into the area, which was stopped in the 1920s, Depression times, but this is about a 20 minutes walk, just showcasing the area, a bit of history. So just after Kawatiri, you come along to the Buller River. And the Buller River is a major river on the west coast here. It comes all the way from Lake Rotoriti, which is in the Nelson Lakes National Park. So you're traveling along the SH6 road and you make your way into Murchison. Murchison is a major village here, and I would recommend to stop for something to eat, something to drink, a toilet stop. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button below and stay connected for more helpful New Zealand travel videos. Also, you can download my free New Zealand travel planning sheet in the description box below. You are welcome to leave any questions or comments in the box as well. So after you depart Murchison, you continue on SH6. There's also a junction here, SH65, which goes down to Christchurch. You want to continue here along the Buller River. It's quite a windy kind of place, and there's a couple of stops you don't want to miss. One of them is the Buller Gorge Swing Bridge. So this attraction is located right on the main road on the left-hand side. There's plenty of car parks, but that's actually the longest swing bridge here in the area. It's 110 meters from what I remember. So this is going over the Buller River. It's a magic area. There's a bit of walking here. They also have a zip line available during the summer season. So we've got their website here. It gives you kind of an idea. It's a perfect place for families to stop, a bit of adventure. They also have jet boating options. It's a bit of history, as I previously mentioned in my last videos on the west coast. There's a lot of gold mining happened in the area in the 1860s, 1880s, and there's still some gold mines. So this gives you kind of an idea what you can do here on the Buller River. So after this stop, you just continue along the Buller River and you now approaching the West Coast District. Here's the border, and there's a beautiful little viewpoint. I encourage you to stop. Now, after this stop, we're coming to an historic place. It's the old village or township of Lisle. This is start of the old Ghost Road. I'll show you some pictures here. So the old Ghost Trail is a hiking trail. There's a car park again. There's lots of information. There's a public toilet. And it's basically either a cycle track or hiking track. And it's just gorgeous. Even if you want to have a little stroll, there's a bit of a cemetery here. So lots of history, lots of things to discover. Let's continue along the main road. There are multiple places you might want to have a quick stop and looking the stunning scenery overlooking the 𝗬𝗆𝗆𝗃𝗃 River. So you're traveling through this tiny village of 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And here's the junction you want to make a decision which direction you want to go. Either going to Westport, which is located here on the west coast, or if you want to head south towards Reefton. So I'll cover both of them and I'll give you the pros and cons on which option you want to select. So the first option going through Westport is obviously if you're a little bit time short, if you only have one night here on the west coast, so you most likely want to do that route. So let's go through this first. Heading along again the 𝗬𝗆𝗃𝗃𝗃 River, there's a couple of little villages like Berlin's. There's a 𝗬𝗏𝘂𝘂𝗁𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 Lookout. That's a kind of a bend in the 𝗬𝗏𝗃 River. So here at 𝗬𝗏𝘂𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 Lookout, it's quite of an interesting road situation. So let's have a look at that. So as you can see, the road is very close to the river. Here's a lovely sign, 𝗬𝗏𝘂𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃 Lookout. But what's happening here, that's a classic kind of a New Zealand situation where you have a one-way road. There's a traffic light on each side, and it's basically only one car at a time going through that narrow kind of road. Again, there's a lot of description around, sights to see, travel times, about the 𝗬𝗏𝗃 River. Here's a local weka bird. I encourage you to stop and breathe in the lovely fresh air and the scenery around you. So continue traveling along the 𝗬𝗏𝗃 River until you come to this junction here, which basically you can either go straight to Punakaiki here on the west coast, or you can go over to Westport. My suggestion is actually to head into Westport. There's a couple of reasons for that. One of that is that you might want to have lunch or afternoon tea. The other reason is that you want to get fuel. There's no petrol station in Punakaiki, so that might be an important stop for you. The other reason is I would highly encourage you to go through Cape Foulwind. So what I would suggest, after having petrol and have lunch and so on, head over to Cape Foulwind Lighthouse. It's a bit of a detour here, but it's well worth it. So as you can see, there's a number of sites here. You can start coming down here to Tauranga Bay. There's a car park here, you can stop. So this is actually a seal colony here directly beneath us. This is a view towards Tauranga Bay. We're looking at the Tasman Sea here, heading over towards Australia. So this is a lovely walk. You can see these fur seals in their natural environment. It's quite smelly though. So, but it's a stunning scenery and many people will stop here. So I highly encourage you to do that. So if you have a little bit more time and you're keen on walking, what you can do actually, you can walk this dotted line along the coast, and it's just an incredible walkway. And if you have a transfer arranged, you could actually do the whole trip from the seal colony right up to the other side, and you're actually passing a lighthouse here. So let's have a look at some of the pictures. Isn't that a stunning scenery? So it's very easy along the coastline. You're passing the lighthouse. You could go one way and return the same way where your car is. It's probably about an hour or so one way, but just depends. I'll give you some more options later on this video when we talk about staying in the Punakaiki Greymouth area, because you could actually do a full day trip into that area from that if you have a little bit more time. So 2 nights on the coast. So after you checked out Cape Foulwind, you continue back to SH6, which is the main road going south. And the next place you might want to stop here is the Mitchell's Gully Gold Mine. Well, as mentioned a few times now. The West Coast was one of the main gold mining regions, or still is to some extent, but these mines are going right back into history. In the 1860s, 1880s was a major gold rush. So you can go back in time a little bit. This Mitchell's gold mine operation, it's showcases the history, showcases how they actually did do that with water tunnels and all sorts of interesting things. So it's not only interesting for families, but for anybody interested in history, really. So after Mitchell's, you're heading down south, and here is yet another adventure you might want to consider. It's the Underworld adventure. We've got a lot of glowworms here on the West Coast, and this is one of the sites you can combine a glowworm tour with an underground caving tour. So you get actually all the equipment, you walk through these caves like seen before, and then you get out onto the river and you float down in a rubber tube, in an old tire tube down the river. And it's a lot of fun, takes about 3 or 4 hours or so. They do half-day tours, they do full-day tours. So just brought up their website, and you can just visualize a little bit better what that looks like. The glowworm hanging down the ceilings. You got going into the caving. It's a magnificent experience. I've done it a couple of times. You get all the equipment, helmets, wetsuit, rubber tube, and you just have to bring a bit of sense of adventure, and you will be well rewarded for that. Right after Charleston, you continue traveling south, and you more or less make your way towards Punakaiki. One place you might want to be aware of is Fox River. This is not far to go to Punakaiki, but for the place I'm talking about is the Ballroom. This is about a 4 hours return trip, but it's well worth considering. You're going right deep into the Paparoa National Park. It's just an incredible scenery. On a fine day, and obviously you need to watch out for water levels. If it's heavy rain. The West Coast is famous for heavy rain. Now continue along the West Coast Road, and you got some of the most amazing viewpoints here. Yeah, on a fine day, this is hard to beat. Right, and you basically rolling into Punakaiki, as with my previous video, which I will link in the description box. There, it's a tiny village. It's around about 70 permanent residents, but there are also a couple of walks which I described previously. There's the Pororari River track, and there's the Truman track, which is here further north. So here's the Truman track, which is about 5 kilometers north. So this is the trip if you go from the Buller River heading through Westport and the Cape Foulwind. As I mentioned before, this is the route I would recommend if you're a little bit time short. Now, let's have a look if you want to go through Reefton, because you have 2 nights on the West Coast between Greymouth and Punakaiki somewhere. Base yourself for 2 nights and explore from there. So with this route, at this junction, you would turn towards Reefton and just straight into Reefton, which you want to spend most of the time here because it's a really interesting place. So when you come into Reefton, you want to head into the main road here. That's where the most interesting parts are. There is a tea room bakery, which is great. But there's also on the other side the bearded mining. So this is an interesting little site where you get the local gold miners or ex-gold miners. They have come together and they brought together these kind of old cottages, and with open fire, with all that kind of equipment they used in the past. This is a view on the main road. Gives you kind of an impression. This is really going back in time. We're looking at the Reefton information site, and there's a lot you can get out of it. They have not only the information center, they have an art gallery, but also they have a gin distillery. We have in New Zealand around about 165 independently, professionally run distilleries. So this is well worth your stop. So after your stop in Reefton, you continue again. Here is the SH7, State Highway 7, and you mainly make your way towards the Grey River and the village of 𝗬𝗏𝗆𝗆. So if you select a property, an accommodation along the coast, either between 𝗬𝗏𝗆𝗆 or 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗀 or even going to Punakaiki, you got a big advantage because you can use your full day available to either go into the 𝗵𝗵𝗆𝗃 National Park here, the walks we have talked about before, or you can even head over to Cape Foulwind and really do that properly. So this is kind of my recommendation. As I mentioned before, I've done a video coming up from Franz Josef Glacier and going to Punakaiki, so this will actually give you a little bit more insight on that stretch here south of Punakaiki. Also, you could continue looking up those kinds of road trip going down to Franz Josef as well as to Wanaka and even down south to Fiordland National Park. So I put all the links in the description box below. I got a playlist there as well. As a summary, you are now well aware of the driving options and must-stop places between Nelson and Punakaiki Rocks. My key advice is to take your time and plan at least 2 nights for each location. If you travel via Reefton and stay 2 nights on the coast, you can use the full day available to explore the region north of 𝗬𝗏𝗆𝗆𝗆, the 𝗵𝗵𝗆𝗆 National Park and the Cape Foulwind area. Nice. If you are time short, then you might travel directly via the Buller Gorge and Westport to Punakaiki. Check out my New Zealand road trip video playlist in the description box below with lots of other places not to be missed out on. Plus, download the free New Zealand travel planning sheet and put any feedback or questions into the comments fields below. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button below and thumbs up to stay connected for more helpful New Zealand travel tips. See you in the next video.